Hello. Um, week 27, book 27. This is last week's book. It is the fifth season, N.K. Jemisin. It is the first book in what series? In a series whose name I don't recall. Um, The Broken Earth. There it is right there. The Broken Earth, book one. Okay, so, hmm, now I picked N.K. Jemisin to read, um, that's her, against Thomas Pynchon on purpose because she is an award-winning black woman who makes use of um, minority voices in her science fiction. And she is, and this is, by the way, um, a winner of the Hugo in 2016. The second book also won a Hugo, and the third book also won a Hugo. So I'm going to alternate between one of these books and Pension for the next couple of books. And then after that, we'll see how things go. So, hmm, all right. So, well, the thing to know about this is it's at least this book is more fantasy than what you would call science fiction. Now, there's a possibility that the magical abilities that people have is in some ways technologically related, and there is a certain amount of technology involved. But at least by the end of this book, it is not completely clear how much is technology and how much is magic. Now, this is the map, okay? And as you can see, it is vaguely reminiscent, maybe, of a distorted Europe or maybe a distorted United States of America or even the Americas themselves, just like Westeros in Game of Thrones. Um, but it's also clearly not that culture. This is a culture in which there are various races mentioned. I can't remember the names of them, but essentially, this, the equatorial belt, uh, these people tend to be darker skinned, and these people up here and these people down here tend to be lighter skinned, as you would expect by the amount of sunlight that they would normally get. So that is a conceit that she uses, and the center of power, the center of that big continent, more or less, is therefore somewhat dominated by darker skinned people. Now, she does talk about race a few times here and there, but honestly, after about, I don't know, the first 25 or 30 so pages of what was going on, I really quickly forgot who was what because, you know, it's not really that important to me as a person. And when it becomes important in the plot, it's mentioned. So, you know, and the racial problems that this culture faces are not the same as our own. And one of the reasons for this is society is divided into castes. And the different castes, it's called use caste. So some castes are strongbacks. Strongbacks are workers, laborers. Another caste is innovators. Innovators seem to be the more technologically minded, the engineering. And then there are leader caste, and leader caste are bred into bureaucracy and leadership and serving as um, those kinds of roles. At least as is depicted here, the majority of the leader cast that we see, although perhaps somewhat arrogant, are also truly interested in public service. So this division has a functionality that works for these for this culture, and the people who are strongbacks, um, they are people who are built with a more muscular frame, and so their very musculature makes a more physical labor more their cup of tea. Although there is some indications that you are not necessarily forced into the exact same caste as your parents. Um, it's not clear exactly how that's done because the entire focus of the novel is on the casteless. Now, these are people who are called origines, or ragas. Now, raga is a derogatory term and is clearly meant to mirror a derogatory term in our culture for the same kind of people who are left out of the social hierarchy, perhaps. Okay, so an origine is a person who has some kind of connection to the earth, and they can call up the energy of the earth and cause earthquakes or various other kind of cataclysms, volcanoes and things of that nature. They can manipulate rock and stone to a limited extent. Now, this is a large limited extent for some of these individuals, but the raw, unfocused talent doesn't have a whole lot of control or focus and is not that powerful. It has to be honed, and not everyone has the same abilities when they have this power. But if someone has this power, they're automatically placed in a different caste from the other people because they are, as the culture in this book sees it, dangerous. Uh, Most of them discover their power young by accidentally hurting someone, oftentimes killing them. And oftentimes it's a friend or a relative who has angered them or accidentally put their life in danger or something to that effect. And these youngsters don't mean to respond with deadly force, but they can't control their power. They don't even know they have it. And, and then boom, here it is. It manifests and they accidentally hurt someone. So in the regular culture, these people are oftentimes um, isolated or even killed. But in the center of this culture, in the main city, this is how this main culture has managed to maintain power for so long. There's an area called the fulcrum, and that's where these origins are gathered and they're trained, and they're given rings for the degree of their control. Okay, and within this structure, there are other people who are called guardians. And at first, the guardians seem to be like good shepherds, but as you learn more about them, you discover that although there is a certain kind of goodness to them, it's a ruthless, functional goodness. Um, their whole entire existence, the guardians, is to control the organs and keep them from going crazy. And they have basically complete unlimited ability to do whatever they think is necessary to control an organ. And they do it through pain, and they do it through emotional manipulation. They do it through strict rules and regulations. Every way in which you can control someone, they do it. It also happens that they have certain kinds of abilities themselves, in part through an implant that they have. And that's where technology comes in. The implant seems to be some kind of technological device, but the exact origin of this device, exactly what this device is, has not been made clear by the end of this first book. I'm guessing that in the second and third books, we're going to learn a lot more about that. Because in this book, what we basically get is the story of a woman who is born into this culture who is herself an origin. I don't know how to pronounce it. Orogene. So origin. origin, I don't know. She's born into this and she has this ability. And she actually has, as it turns out, a very, very, very strong ability. Okay. And she accidentally hurt someone at school when she's like 6. And so she's put in a barn and isolated by her parents until a man comes who happens to be a guardian who takes her away and takes her to the fulcrum, where she is both terrorized and somewhat brutalized by him and the entire guardian system, but also trained in how to use her power. Until one day, things start to happen, and she meets someone, and this person shows her a deep secret that she's not supposed to know about. And we don't really understand the secret when she learns it, but it deals with a huge pit in the center of the fulcrum in a room that has a hidden door. We don't know what that's about, but it does mean that she's about to be disciplined. So rather than getting disciplined, she is immediately taken by her guardian, who, like I said, does have a certain kind of care and love and concern for her. He really and truly does, but it because he wants to control her abilities. So, in order to keep her from being severely chastised and possibly destroyed because of the information that she gets, her guardian intervenes and gets her tested for her first ring, which demonstrates that she has enough control, and that puts her on the path of getting rings. We catch up with her again when she has 4 rings. Now, at first, we don't know this is the same woman. Now we think it is, but we're not 100% sure until later on. So this woman is being basically pimped out to a 10 ring guy. And the reason why she's being pimped out is this orogeny, this organy, this power is passed on through genetic material. And so they want this 10 ringer and this upcoming 4 ringer, they want them to reproduce. And the child that is produced will manifest these kinds of powers and be useful for something. Now I find out that there's a real darkness to this, even darker than the pimping out of this woman and this man for that matter, because as it turns out, this man isn't into it at all. He performs his duty, and this is not the first child he's been forced to attempt to conceive. But I don't want to give away every aspect of the story, in part because as I haven't read the second and third parts of the series yet, I don't know in what ways some of this may be revisioned by later events and deeper revelations, which is very much a possibility. So anyway, this woman and this 4 ringer now and this 10 ringer, they go off and have a adventure. And in this adventure, the 4 ringer discovers another secret she's not supposed to know, which is over top of this world there are obelisks, and these obelisks seem to serve no purpose. But as it turns out, someone who has this orogeny period power, particularly if it's a particular kind and if it's strong enough, can connect up with the obelisks instead of down into the earth and get power from up instead of power from down. And this power is much, 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 much greater. And she discovers this and at the same time manages to cause a lot of destruction. And she also discovers that this 10 ringer guy is friends with what's called a stone eater. Now, stone eater is another kind of unusual, perhaps human or humanoid figure in this world, which literally eats stones. Um, but not just any stones. They can pass through stone and they can turn people into stone. And there's something about what they eat that it guess it is what used to be flesh. They turn it into stone. Okay, so she manages to cause some massive destruction and also manages to hurt this 10 ringer pretty badly in the process. Flash forward again. She is now uh, at the end of the world. Now, what I mean by the end of the world? Well, remember how these people have these organ, this spirit power, and the fulcrum tries to control them in order to still and control earthquakes, because this land is prone to massive cataclysmic earthquakes and volcanoes and these kind of, well, one of these happens and pretty much destroys apparently the city where the fulcrum is and all of that stuff. And this woman has now found herself back in a village under an assumed name. And she has to go on her journey now because everything's been destroyed. And she is on a quest now to take care of a personal matter that she has to take care of. And it turns out that she finds out at the very end that all these things she's learned are connected. That big pit, that's where the obelisks are made. The obelisks follow the people who have the orogeny, at least the people who have the ability to manipulate it. The stone eaters, who are usually not very interested in the goings on of us, you normal humans, are interested in those people who can use orogeny to connect with the obelisks. Now, where did she learn this? She learned this from the Ten Ringer guy, and it turns out that he is the one who, bit of a spoiler, so you're warned, he is the one who caused this cataclysm because of how she heard him earlier. So now it looks like in the second and third books, she's either going to have to continue the process of destroying this culture or restoring it. Now, why would she want to destroy it? For the same reason the Ten Ringer did. Because this enslavement of people who have this power and some deeper, darker ways in which they enslave them turns out not to be necessary. It's only necessary because this culture who does not have this power wants to remain in control and control the organs or the origins or the this orogeny. Okay, all that. It is a fascinating book. It is a great book in many ways. I understand why it won the Hugo. There are, at least within the context of this one book, there are some things that are difficult to accept exactly. There's some writing that seems a little bit sloppy or deliberately misleading. There does seem to be just a little bit of happy coincidence and happy circumstance in places, but but it is very possible that some of that will be explained by deeper explanations later on. It's a great book. I mean, it I those flaws are so unbelievably minor. So if you have any interest in this kind of book, I would say pick it up. Um, it will surprise you in places. There are some things that just are not what you think. And good book. All right, next week, Gravity's Rainbow. We'll see how that goes. I don't know if I can do Gravity's Rainbow in one video. We'll see. All right.